One of the most historically significant structures in Palmer Woods is the log cabin that sits right in the middle of Palmer Park. The log cabin belonged to Senator Thomas Palmer and his wife Lizzie. Senator Palmer was a farmer first and senator second, so the land was used for livestock and crops. The log cabin was built in 1885, but had many modern features like hot running water, a toilet, and stained glass windows. In fact, the log cabin is considered a folly.
The cabin in and of itself is a strange object. It's not really a log cabin. The logs are not structural. The cabin is built like a Victorian balloon framed house, and then it's wrapped in logs.
The cabin was a nice vacation home for the Palmers and a meeting place for many senators around the country. When Senator Palmer donated this area to Detroit, his cabin was left intact.
And after his death, the cabin became a museum. There were many antiques from his family that were brought here. He had relatives going way back to the early colonists of the Massachusetts colony. And so they had many of these very old artifacts brought from the East Coast and they were displayed in the cabin up until the 1960s. They had a full-fledged museum there that was open every weekend.
Due to budget cuts, the museum closed in the 1960s and was left abandoned for nearly 40 years. There was no vandalism, but wild animals and harsh weather took a toll on the structure. In an effort to bring new life into the log cabin, the people for Palmer Park began hosting Log Cabin Day, and the city of Detroit donated $400,000 towards restoration and preservation.
Typically on Log Cabin Day, we'll have a number of events. We'll have my favorite, free ice cream, but we also have usually a band of fiddlers. We have square dancing. Sometimes some old cars, antique car enthusiasts will show up. We usually have the big, I don't know what you call them, those big wheeled bicycles rolling around. There's a group that brings historic bicycles. We'll have people dressed in costume giving tours of the cabin, just trying to describe what it would have been like for Senator and Mrs. Palmer to live out here in the wilderness of 6 Mile and Woodward at that time. This was, they were gravel roads out here, and Detroit was a distant city. It really ended at Grand Boulevard at that time.
Phase 1 of the restoration project will be completed fall of 2016, and Phase 2 will be restoring the beautiful stained glass windows. Another upcoming project is with Lake Francis. The people for Palmer Park will be partnering up with a group in Ann Arbor to make this a BioGreens demonstration lake.
We can learn a lot from history, and if we preserve some of these things, a physical thing like the cabin, people start to ask questions about the people, and then from those discussions may become history lessons that we can use today. Like Scott Fountain is to Belle Isle, the log cabin is to Palmer Park. It sits there in the middle, and it's sort of the landmark that tells you what this park is. It stakes it out as a rustic log cabin farm, and I think that's what we're trying to do, is bring back a little bit of the concept of what Senator Palmer originally loved so much, was his log cabin farm.
You're watching a production of Comcast CN900, your home for local sports, news, and entertainment.